The latest round of North American Free Trade Agreement negotiations came to an end last week without a deal. It's not clear whether a compromise will be reached or President Trump will make good on his threat of pulling out. But we have seen enough of his approach to trade to know it is fundamentally mistaken and counterproductive. Mr. Trump is not wrong to think that trade agreements have shortchanged America as a whole while enriching corporate and financial interests. He was right to walk away from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, an agreement that was less about free trade and more about special privileges for investors, large companies, and pharmaceutical businesses. But Mr. Trump made a mistake by prioritizing a NAFTA renegotiation. The jobs lost to Mexico will almost certainly never come back. Automation ensures that manufacturing employment will continue to be a small percentage of the labor force. Moreover, trade barriers would be disruptive to employment in their own right. United States auto production now relies on extensive North American supply chains in auto parts. Mr. Trump's focus on the bilateral trade deficit with Mexico is also a red herring. The overall trade deficit of the United States is determined primarily by macroeconomic factors: American consumer saving propensities, domestic corporations' investment behavior, and the federal government's fiscal and monetary policies. Trade policies with Mexico can do very little to alter this picture. But the biggest flaw of this administration's trade policy is that it falls squarely within the pervasive established mercantilist tradition. For mercantilists, the purpose of trade agreements is to open up other countries' economies to our companies to the maximum extent possible while minimizing how much we open up ours. Everybody else must adjust how their economy works, while we maintain our own ways. Under the guise of fairness to workers as a whole, this approach equates national interest with the profit-seeking behavior of United States corporations or protectionist groups. When trade agreements focused mostly on tariff and non-tariff barriers at the border, mercantilism produced some salutary consequences. Reaching agreement would require the United States to reduce its tariffs in return for other countries reducing theirs. International trade would be freer as a result. But today's trade deals are largely about domestic regulations and standards, the behind-the-border rules that purportedly stifle international commerce and investment. Mercantilism no longer has much of a silver lining. It now translates simply into investors and corporations getting their wish list fulfilled with the removal of any and all impediments to their cross-border activities. Of all the special interests that have shaped recent trade agreements, none has been as energetic in its lobbying, or more successful, than the pharmaceutical sector. A result has been the inclusion of ever-stringent patent rules in trade agreements since the 1990s. Historically, patent laws have been enacted as an inducement to innovation, yet economists are increasingly skeptical that strong patents are necessary for that purpose. Euphemistically called trade-related intellectual property rights, these protections serve mainly to transfer monopoly profits from global consumers to patent holders in the United States.